Likeable Liz. Roulette Rishi.
I'll bet you £1,000 to a refugee charity you don't get anybody on those planes before the election.
Of course I want to get the people on the plane.
£1,000.
Right?
And Learned Lee.
Now, I'm pretty sure that coal 100 million years ago was trees and plants. Is that right, Jacob?
These are the interesting times. Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnston and welcome to the Interesting Times, a political comedy show from the UK. So, Liz Truss was excited about the launch of a new party within a party, the Popular Conservatives.
It was a democratic political movement designed to deliver Conservative policies, and it was called the Conservative Party.
Yes, but they're not popular ones. Just to be clear, they are different from the Conservative Growth Group, the Common Sense Group, the New Conservatives, the Old Conservatives, the Something Borrowed Conservatives, and the Something Blue Conservatives. I might have made some of those up. So, who are the Popular Conservatives? The PopCons are made up of Liz Truss, not just the shortest-serving Prime Minister, but also, ironically, one of its least popular, who lasted just over 6 weeks, before resigning, knocking £30 billion off the UK economy in the process. Jacob Rees-Mogg, who was Brexit Opportunities Minister for about the same time and managed to produce the sum total of sweet fuck all, but at least he didn't lose billions. And Lee Anderson, who was Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, who resigned as he felt very strongly about opposing the government's Rwanda plan, then decided against voting against it when he got laughed at by Labour MPs, then tried to ask for his job back. The trouble with popular conservatism, though, sometimes it can all get a bit too PC.
If all of us are being honest in this room, we've been swimming against the tide when we're talking about conservative values. Whether it's what's going on in our schools and the fact that wokeism seems to be on the curriculum.
Looking at the setting and atmosphere, it certainly seems to be a lot less woke and a lot more wake. Ashes to ashes, funk to funky, we all know your party's sunky. But this was a new type of conservatism, not to be confused with the New Conservatives. They aren't just there to blame Jeremy Corbyn.
It's fair to say, over the past 14 years, Conservative governments have had many achievements. We've kept Jeremy Corbyn out of office.
I did say not just to blame Jeremy Corbyn. They had other policies too.
I'm afraid we have not taken on the left enough. We see it in corporations. We see it most of all in the quangos and government bureaucracy that emerged under Tony Blair.
The next step, I'm guessing, is to blame Ramsay MacDonald for not saying what a woman was. Whilst it was clear what the con was, you have to ask, where was the pop? Well, wonder no more as the event took on a more international feel as ex-soap star and no-hit wonder Holly Valance turned up with her husband, billionaire property developer Nick Candy. Why does that guy look familiar? Oh, that's unsettling. No, that's not it. Yes, there you go. He was at Sean Bailey's gathering which broke lockdown rules. And as he's here for the Popular Conservatives, you could say he's gone from one illegal party to another. Holly Valance wasn't just there to add a bit of dazzle to the proceedings. Come on, Lee Anderson couldn't do it all. She was also ready to give her opinions on things.
I would say that everyone starts off as a lefty and then wakes up at some point after you start either making money, working, trying to run a business, trying to buy a home, and then realise what crap ideas they all are.
And marries a billionaire. For love, I'm sure.
Concerned about the way things are going in the country. Many things worry and bother me with 2 little children.
Ah, yes, the climate crisis.
I just think the climate crisis, or lack of, is not a crisis.
Oh, isn't a crisis. And Lee Anderson's views on this seem to match hers.
We're growing trees and chopping them down, shipping them halfway across the world to put into a power station that used to take coal from a coal mine. These wood pellets are sustainable because they're trees. Now, I'm pretty sure that coal 100 million years ago was trees and plants. Is that right, Jacob? It was. So I would argue that that's sustainable.
Sure, if you're prepared to wait 100 million years for it. Although that should coincide with the first Brexit benefits coming in. The most interesting thing about this event wasn't the level of irony at having Liz Truss, the least popular Conservative leader ever, as a leader of the Popular Conservatives, or seeing Jacob Rees-Mogg, an Eton-educated millionaire and knight of the realm, rally against the elites. It was actually the fact that a fringe event, which called themselves the Popular Conservatives and had 11 only turn up, then when you look at the polling for the next general election, you have to say, that seems a little bit optimistic. Following on from Rishi Sunak's various acts of harm perpetrated on the nation, which include Eat Out to Help Out as Chancellor, done in the summer of 2020, leading to thousands of COVID deaths. And then at the COVID inquiry, he blamed it on the scientists for not raising objections, even though he didn't actually mention it to them. For all that time, he introduced a 3-line whip on his own party to stop those who had been infected with contaminated blood from operations with the NHS from receiving compensation. A vote that he lost, by the way, when 22 Tory MPs rebelled, including Andrea Jenkins. Yes, the new moral compass for Westminster. Oh, and when was challenged on the state of the NHS did this?
Stop it all. You could make it all go back to how it used to be, where we had.
And when he was told of the plight of someone in the UK who couldn't afford a mortgage, making them effectively homeless, responded in this fashion.
Well, Mr. Speaker, again, I was puzzled because, again, he resorts, as always, to the politics of MV.
And said this about Alan Bates and the other sub-postmasters.
People should be rest assured the money is there. I approved it as Chancellor. There are 3 different compensation schemes and we will do everything we can to make this right.
Before offering him compensation so pitiful, Mr. Bates described it as cruel, offensive and derisory, and a whole ton more that I've no doubt will be added to the comment section. Please, feel free. Then you might think we've seen all we need to or want to about how low we can go. But this little loathsome limbo dancer is only getting started. He went on to Piers Morgan's TV talk radio show thing. He met with Piers Morgan's and somebody filmed it. 2 fairly big talking points came out of this. One, he was asked if he would make a wager on sending refugees to Rwanda. A horrible, crass and completely inappropriate question to ask. Sunak's response? Yeah, all right.
I'll bet you £1,000 to a refugee charity you don't get anybody on those planes before the election. Will you take that bet?
Of course I want to get the people on the planes.
£1,000.
Right, I want to get the people on the planes.
Now, this understandably produced condemnation across the political spectrum. Less understandable was his response when he was asked about it on the 5 Live breakfast show the next morning.
Now, yesterday, you shook hands on a £1,000 bet with Piers Morgan over the Rwanda scheme. When people are struggling to pay their food and fuel bills in this country, a lot of our listeners are saying they found that pretty offensive.
Well, if I'm being totally honest, I'm not a betting person and I was taken totally by surprise in the middle of that interview.
Totally taken by surprise by a handshake and a wager. Well, that bodes well for all those post-Brexit deals we're supposed to be getting. Surprised as well to hear he's not a betting man, seeing as to how much he's gambled the future of this country. Good luck collecting your money, Piers Morgan, if you think a handshake from him means anything. Oh yeah, and 2, this.
A prescribed terrorist organisation. We're bringing forward the legislation to do that. And again, question for Keir Starmer. He, once upon a time, represented Hizb ut-Tahrir. It's like that's who he was on the side of. We're busy trying to ban these people, and he was busy trying to.
Do you think he's a terrorist sympathiser?
Well, I said the facts speak for themselves, right?
That's our Prime Minister at a time when MPs across the board are complaining about hate messages and online threats and even resigning over it, saying that the leader of the opposition, a man who himself in the past has encountered real-time harassment based on the words of another Conservative Prime Minister, is a terrorist sympathiser. And unfortunately, I'm sure nobody watching that video would be taken by surprise by that. And this is him listening to Piers Morgan talk about his mother being left on a hospital trolley for 7 hours.
I'll tell you a personal story at this stage, because I found it quite shocking. So my mother is 79 and she had a heart attack 3 months ago. And she was taken to a local hospital and she was seen when she got there, and then she was put on a trolley in A&E in a corridor for nearly 7 hours. She said old men were begging for bottles to urinate into. Others were crying in pain or discomfort. She said it was a scene out of a war zone. That's my mum, who's worked all her life, right? Paid her taxes all her life.
Why is he smiling? Okay, what's the punchline? The problem with Sunak is he's not very good at expressing empathy because he's never really had to. This is 5 Live Breakfast where he was asked his thoughts on women watering down baby formula to make it last longer.
Charities tell us that families are watering down baby formula because they can't afford it. Now, can you ever imagine being in that situation?
Well, my job is to make sure everyone has the financial security
but does that
they want
shock you?
for them and their families. And of course, I'm sad to hear that someone's in that situation.
Sad?
But if someone's got a little one in their life and they're having to do that, that's an incredibly sad thing.
It's not just sad, it's incredibly sad. In fact, you can't see it because it's radio, but I am actually crying. And at PMQs, when the mother of murdered transgender teenager Brianna Gay was in the chamber.
Defining a woman. Although in fairness, that was only 99% of a U-turn.
It's going to be a long 9 months. Michelle O'Neill, the very new First Minister of Northern Ireland, got straight into the new job, meeting both the tea ladies.
The Irish tea sock.
Oh yeah, that's the one. And the Prime Miniature. They all met up and then sat round a round table. Bet they're all wishing there was something playing on their TVs. And bouncing up and down like an excited teenager meeting their favourite band, Rishi Sunak. Careful what you wish for. Not all the heads of state are Leo Varadkar. And if the US elects the orange orangutan, then you'll be really earning your money. At least with Sunak, you can see where his hands are, like all the time. But of course, at this historic moment, everyone wants to talk to the historic First Minister.
Irish Republicans don't usually use the term Northern Ireland, but you did in your acceptance speech. Is that what we're going to see more of? I mean, will Michelle O'Neill be at an Orange March? Will she go to a Linfield football match?
But certainly, I'm hoping that I get invitations. I want to step into ground that perhaps a Republican hasn't stepped into before.
Westminster? No? Oh, OK. But the question everybody really wants to know, Irish unity.
That Northern Ireland's future in the UK will be secure for decades to come. Your party leader says a united Ireland is within touching distance. Decades are touching distance. Which is it?
I welcome that we now have power sharing once again restored, and we've got a very large in-tray of work to get down to in terms of health and education right across all of the portfolios. But I would absolutely contest what the British government have said in that document insofar as my election to the post of First Minister demonstrates the change that's happening on this island. And that's a good thing. It's a healthy thing because this change, I think, can benefit us all. So when Mary Lou McDonald talks about that it is within touching distance, I believe that we are in the decade of opportunity. And I believe also equally that we can do two things at once.
A possibly tricky question navigated fairly well, I think you'll agree. Less well navigated, a bit more on the rocks, if you will, is the UK Government Secretary of State, Chris Heaton-Harris.
At any time, it appears likely that a majority of those voting would express a wish that Northern Ireland should cease to be part of the UK and form part of a united Ireland. You've just ruled that out for 10 years.
Yeah, because I think Michelle says it should be within a decade. I don't see those conditions coming based on the current polling, current voting intentions, and a whole host of other factors.
Actually, you've just ruled it out in your lifetime. How can you possibly know?
Yeah, I don't think it will happen. Well, let's wait and see.
If you're the person who's saying it's not going to happen, how do those people who want it to happen express a wish that it should?
Vote for a nationalist leader? And speaking on and for a united Ireland, the Teocdor for Donegal, Padraig McLaughlin.
But yes, we do need to have a debate about the inevitable path that we're on, which is towards a united Ireland.
It's not inevitable. You're not Putin. You are supposed to have the vote first, then act on that. But maybe Northern Ireland or North of Ireland shouldn't be in such a rush, according to the DUP's Jeffrey Donaldson.
Do you think that Rishi Sunak got Brexit done?
Think that our unfettered access to the market in the United Kingdom, of which we are an integral part, is vital to our economy. It's our biggest market. But we also have the benefit of privileged access to the EU single market. And I think that makes Northern Ireland a very attractive location for international investment.
Yeah, all right. Don't rub it in. And that's it. No time to talk about Mark Pritchard ready to go to war with Iran.
And whilst, I believe in peace and diplomacy, it is the malevolent factor in the region in all of this is Iran. We don't want to provoke Iran to a major conflict with NATO or the US or the UK, that actually putting off that decision now may well cost more lives in the future.
I believe in diplomacy, so if we could just strap a letter seeking negotiations to a nuclear warhead and aim it at Tehran, then I'm sure that would help. Maybe sit Mark down and explain that we went to war with Iraq not too long ago and it didn't go great. No time to talk about the fact that even though it's only January, we may just have found our 2024 winner of the No Shit Sherlock Prize.
Well, I think I've probably sat in this very chair before and said that we didn't make Boris Johnson Prime Minister for his meticulous attention to detail.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. And finally, no time to talk about King Charles III, who is to undergo treatment for cancer, which thankfully isn't terminal. So let's start with the good news.
Give him his due. He's come out publicly with it. And I think it will encourage people to come forward for testing, and it will encourage all of us also to look at cancer services again.
It's a huge gift he's given to people affected by cancer, because one of the things that they talk about is feeling alone, that there's no one else like them, that the uncertainty of what's ahead. And by sharing, as he has done so openly, he's giving others the opportunity to share their own diagnosis.
Indeed, the fact that people are talking about it. If you're one of the 1/3 of a million people in the UK or others around the world that have been diagnosed with cancer, then that news will hopefully make you feel slightly less alone, I'd imagine. And if getting checked is something you've been putting off, maybe this is the kick up the arse you've been waiting for to get that done. In that regard, this sharing of his diagnosis is good news. On the other hand,
diagnosis and speedy treatment has shone the spotlight once again on the NHS's waiting times between diagnosis and treatment. Its target is for people to start treatment within 62 days of being diagnosed, but the latest figures show in England just 59% of people have been able to do that, compared to 85% in 2015.
It does show the alarming drop in standards we've chosen to put up with over the last decade. So maybe in that regard, it's also good news to highlight that during election year. Thank you all so much for watching. And if you haven't, why not? Sorry, I meant if you haven't, why not subscribe, like, comment and share? And I'll see you all soon. Take care.